Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel. Today we're going to be doing the first in a new brand review video series, and we're going to be reviewing Optimum Car Care.
Leo guns down, Leo guns down, Leo guns down in the ground. Leo guns down, boy, or I will lay you down. Say your last prayer, and don't look back here no more. The Lord can't help you, you've gone too far for sure. I'm on the highway, hitting kinda loud, singing all the time.
Okay guys, so I've been looking forward to starting this video series for a while now. What I wanted to do with this series is, rather than review an individual product from a specific brand, I wanted to take a brand, look at its entire product range and pick out and review all the highlights of that brand range, okay? All the products that perhaps are considered class leading or flagship for that brand. Also provide you some introductions, sort of company background info on that particular brand. And then after we've been through its product range and looked at those products, sort of draw some conclusions on that brand and what it might be offering you that other brands aren't. So in other words, where that brand is strong. And that's it. It's got to be quite simple, but I want the information to be useful. Okay, so in 2001 in Memphis, Tennessee, Optimum Car Care was set up by a gentleman called Dr. David Degussy. And apologies if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, okay? Now, Dr. David Degussy, you might have heard of him. I'd heard his name mentioned a few times and read some quotes from him. And it was always, whenever I'd read anything that he wrote, it was always very technical, very low level, the real nuts and bolts of kind of chemistry that flies over most people's heads. You know, most people might be able to talk at high level chemical terms, but not low level. So immediately, if you just read anything that this guy's written, you can tell straight away he's got a real in-depth chemical knowledge, okay? So his background is he has a doctorate in a chemical engineering field. I'm not sure if it's polymer or organic chemistry, one of those fields. He then worked in the automotive coating industry for DuPont and PPG for over 12 years, I believe. And really importantly was his background, what he worked on for those 12 years. And he was involved when the industry made the migration from single stage gloss paint, if you like, over to a base coat paint with a clear coat on top. So he helped develop that kind of clear coat, I believe, which is a pretty cool thing to be a part of, okay? So we're going to go ahead now and walk through the Optimum Car Care product range, and then we're going to stop at some specific products which I want to give you a little bit more information about, because I believe they should be of interest to you if you're kind of into your car care and you're into your detailing, and we're going to go through with each product and explain why. Okay guys, so next up I'm going to be talking about the Optimum Hyper range, the Hyper Compound and the Hyper Polish, okay? So they're abrasives. Now, just a little bit of background information. In 2006, Dr. David Degussy went to help Ford Motor Company that were having a problem with defects in their paintwork. So, automotive companies that are building cars and painting those cars will be dealing with defects in the clear coat. I guess at this stage we're talking about clear coat, and having to remove those defects. So typically denibbing, removing dirt specks with ultra fine kind of denibbers, almost like using a wet sander here, but kind of smaller. So spot correction, with the denibbing kits. And once you've done that, you leave this kind of this small area of kind of sanding marks that then needs to be compounded and polished. Now, Ford were having a problem that they were using these wall pads, I believe, and this I'm paraphrasing here from an Optimum podcast, and I'll put the link to that podcasting so you can listen to the doctor talking about it properly. But anyway, they had these problems with their wall pads and the products they were using, the compounds and polishes, leaving marks on the clear coat after they'd removed the defects, and they couldn't figure out what it was. So that's where the doctor came in. So the doctor determined that it was to do with the product they were applying to the wall pad wasn't covering the whole surface of the wall. Okay, so when that wall pad was buffing over that clear coat, it was leaving marks and imperfections, and that was the root cause of the problem. So the solution to that problem was quite simple. Just how you distribute the product onto the pad is going to solve the problem. So that is where I believe the birth of this hyper compound and hyper polish came about. And Optimum have released these products now and patented, that's one of those words I struggle with, patent. They created a patent for the technology to spray the product onto the wall pad, and formulated a product that could be sprayed onto the wall pad, okay? And there you have your hyper compound and polish. Okay, so let's just look at these products then. So starting with the hyper compound. So the first thing that's different is this is the only compound and polish, when we talk about the polish as well, that you can spray on your pad. Now why is that important, okay? It's important because they noticed, what I was telling you before from Ford Motors isn't a made up story, that's a piece of automotive history there, okay? So the distribution of the product over the pad is really important. That's why kind of priming your pads with the traditional products is really important, or especially when you are using microfiber pads, okay? It is difficult and it's messy to get your product to go all the way around a microfiber pad, and it's important that you do that. If you leave dry spots on the microfiber pad, that will affect, you know, that will cause you problems, okay? So you'll see in a lot of the kind of videos that are out there on YouTube of these guys that use the products on the microfiber pads, telling you to make sure you get proper coverage of the product all over the pad. And more often than not, they're using their finger to do that. And I always thought, why aren't they spraying it? And I never knew that Optimum had a patent on this till I saw, you know, so I started researching for this video, listening to the podcast, and it makes sense now. So other things you need to know about this particular product, it has a longer working time than most products on the markets that I've seen, okay? So they've paid attention to the lubrication, as you would if you're formulating a compound. You know, one big part of it is going to be obviously the abrasive technology and how you lubricate that abrasives, okay? So the formulation is designed to give you longer working windows than the normal, and it's a low dust formulation. Another thing, the formulation is non-VOC, so it doesn't contain any volatile organic components. Is it volatile organic components or volatile organic chemistry, something like that? VOC is bad, okay, and it really is bad, especially with abrasives, okay, because some of those abrasives will be coming up in the air, okay, when you do this, and those particles that are flying around, if your product contains solvents, you're inhaling that into your lungs, and if you're doing this day in and day out, that's quite a bad thing to be putting inside of you, okay? So this is non-VOC, which is important, so it's safe to use. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about this product is the amount of it you have to use on your set in comparison to other products that I've used. And the amount is a lot less. Now, you don't have to prime your pad or anything like that and start with 5 blobs like you do the others and swap down to 4 or tweak it around and get a prime pad. You just start. And they suggest you use 1 or 2 squirts. So I started with 2 squirts on my first run, and that was quite a lot, okay? I think I was using small pads, so maybe on a bigger pad 2 squirts might be okay, but they suggest 1 or 2. I think 1 squirt will do you fine. It seems to put it on the surface of the pad, and then that's it, you're up and running. You don't. Another thing is, you know, I'm used to putting my products down, shaking my bottle up like hell, squirting out my beans on the pad, laying it down, working that product into a film first, altering my speed and ramping up, and then working that product for its shelf life, okay, and then stopping. This, you just spray it on your pad and start polishing. You save a lot of time, okay, so you're not having to do different you're not having to do the lay down pass, if you like, and then the working pass. You just spray and go, and that's kind of quite cool as well. So that's a summary of all of the things, all of the kind of initial things that have caught my eye about the product and the things that I heard on the podcast. So the patent with the spray, non-VOC, the long working time and low dusting formula, and the amount that you have to use, okay? And now over to the Optimum polish, guys. So all of the things that I said about the hyper compound apply to the hyper polish. Okay, so the key thing again, the patent on the spray, the non-VOC, the low dusting. The dusting is generally less of a problem on finishing polishes, okay? It's much finer abrasives. They don't tend to heat up as much if you're working them at high speeds, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's the same principles, okay? But it's a polish instead of a compound. So we understand that the compounds are there for cutting and the correction, so they're more aggressive, and the polishes are there to give you that final finishing of flattening down of the clear coat to as consistent and as perfect a surface as you can get. Okay, so what I wanted to do for my little pea-sized brain is to satisfy myself that this product is capable of being used and abused, okay? And by used and abused, you know, if you use a product, if a product has a real kind of strict criteria of how you should use it. So in other words, you have to use it at this speed, you can only work it for X amount of times. If you do anything wrong, you won't get results and it's your fault. I like products that are very hard to go wrong with, okay? So you can, you know, you essentially get that product on your pad and work it and it gives you results, and you have to do some really stupid things to not get good results. I also wanted to test the product with some heavy damage, okay, and with some sanding marks. So we got our test panel, and I got a load of grit and gunk, some real nasty grit and dirt and mud, and I just rubbed it all over that panel and scratched the hell out of it. Deep scratches that, you know, that I'll overlay so you can see some of the footage that we're talking about here. I also then put I also wet sanded a section of the wing with P2 2500, which is quite a fine grit, but it's typically, you know, you can, the compound says it will buff out 1200 sanding marks, but if ever I'm wet sanding, I won't leave 1200. I'll typically leave 3000. I find even with 3000 you can go quite quickly, you know. So I don't typically tend to use you know, 1200 grit. In fact, I never use it. But there you go. So we've got 2500 sanding marks, and we've got deep scratches, as you can see. Now the next thing is I wanted to put this product on a rotary, okay, and I wanted to ramp up that rotary and work this product hard and fast. Now I've done the video, you know, I've done the videos on rotary correction and kind of talked a little bit about, especially if you're using the tool for the first time, keeping the speeds below 1000 or getting up to 1000, and you'll correct quite quickly. I was using this machine between 1500 and 1800 RPM, okay? And when you get up to 1800 RPM, you'll get into stupid speed where you will generate heat, okay? And you will correct quite rapidly. So it's going to test the formulation of this product. And you know, there's some products out there, if you use them at 1800 on a rotary, they will start drying up and scooping up within a minute. You know, some of the real bad ones that are, you know, the lubrication systems aren't great on them. So that was the first thing. I also wanted to check that I could get all of those sanding marks out. All of those sanding marks and all of those grit marks out within that set, okay? Which is a tall order. Less of a tall order with the sanding marks, but a tall order for the grit marks, because they are deep. They are nasty scratches. You know, I can, with the light on them, you can see them quite clearly. I take the light off, I can still see some of them, and that's never a good sign. That probably means you're getting quite low, you know. None of them went all the way through, I know that much. They're all correctable, but they are deep. So what I can say about the results here, guys, the Hyper compound removed the sanding marks with absolutely no problem. Even, you know, it wasn't even towards the end of the set where they were gone. It was early on in the set. As soon as the first pass went over there, it took the sanding marks right out. The micro scratch is okay. I did the full set for about 2 minutes, and when that set was finished, I thought I'd got everything, but there was one deep scratch down the middle, okay? So all I did was just squirted a bit more and then just did a couple more passes on that little area and it was gone, okay? And that's just the reality, okay? It would have been a bit of a tall order to expect, you know, a quick 2 minute set to kind of get rid of that. Now, the product worked within that 2 minute set without drying, without throwing any dust at me. There was plenty of product on there. I thought I was going to be almost dry buffing with the amount I put on there with the one squirt. I'm kind of looking at it thinking this is going to need more. I'm going to need 6 squirts or something like that. But as soon as you put the product down and then work it, you see the product there. You see it, you know, the discs almost, if you like, where it's spinning behind you, which is good. And you want to be able to see that. The moment you stop seeing that product and you just see shiny clear coat, you know you're scooping up and dry buffing. You never want to dry buff. So the product within its window of 2 minutes, that's what I worked it for. Didn't dry buff, didn't give me any problems, and corrected 99% of the damage apart from one really deep scratch in the middle. Like I say, I just came back and took that away. Now you can see the results here, and I'll overlay them. I was able to just get that panel back in a quick space of time without too much fuss. I was able to achieve 100% correction, not a single scratch left in that panel, okay, which is great. That's the name of the game. But the thing that kind of stuck out in my mind was I was able to do it quite quickly. Okay guys, so next up was the polish, taking our paintwork, which has been compounded. If ever you're using a compound, you will want to then go ahead and refine that compound. The compound is designed primarily, unless it's like one of these single stage ones, and there's a few good ones out there on the market, but primarily designed to be better at shaving the clear coat faster to remove the damage, okay? The consequence of that is that the finish isn't as good, okay? So this product is then to take that kind of unrefined finish and really make it flat, okay, and refining. And whenever you polish, it really brings that paint back to life and gives you the shine that you like. It's kind of quite hard to describe, but if you've been doing enough compounding polishing, you can tell the difference between a compounded finish and a polished finish quite easily, okay? So anyway, this works in exactly the same way as the Optimum Hyper polish. As the Optimum Hyper compound. You spray it out on your polishing pad and you work it, and again just 1 or 2 squirts. I'd say with this definitely 1 squirt. It's more like using butter. You know, most polishes are, okay. Most polishes are much friendlier to use than compounds. Compounds can get messy, okay, and require a little bit more attention. Polishes are less forgiving, but this polish is extremely forgiving. You can blast this onto your pad and you'll see me working it, and you can work it and work it and work it and work it and work it. And I'll probably get a slap wrist for saying that, because you don't want to keep working your product beyond the point when it's doing anything, okay? So you don't want to overwork products, and that's the thing I'm guilty of as a guy that does this not professionally. You know, I can overwork the hell out of products. It's my biggest faux pas. So I tend to like products that are tolerant to being overworked and they won't dry up on you. This product is as good as any polish I've used. It really is. Okay, there's one last thing I want to talk about with these Hyper compound and polish range, okay? They've all been developed with this thing in mind called Optimum Synergy, okay? Which is like it's a word to capture some properties that they've put into these products so that they can be used or designed to work with the other products, okay? And on the surface of it, that sounds, you know, sounds like, what do I need to know about that for? But the whole point of it, beyond it just sounding clever, is to save you time, okay? So say you're a guy who's got this, you know, nice sports car sitting in his garage, and you're getting into detailing, and you realise now your car, you know, it has issues. It's got covered in contaminant. It's got swirl marks on it. It needs the full treatment. It needs a proper wash. It needs a full decontamination. Then it needs a compound. And it needs a polish, you know, and then it needs sealing. Okay. Well, they developed a system so that you could take the Optimum No Rinse and you could clean the car, or you could clean it with traditional methods if you want to do that, whatever. But you could then go ahead and clay your car. You could use the Optimum No Rinse system as the clay lube. And then once you've clayed that, you leave the Optimum No Rinse system on the car. You don't sit there buffing it off like you do with, you know, if you use, some people I know use shampoo, which I'm not too keen on, but other people use clay lubes, dedicated clay lubes, which I think are better, or ONR, which makes a good clay lube because of the technology, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But you can leave the residue on there, okay? So you save yourself time, not having to go and clay and then go back over and buff off the kind of residue that's left behind. Just leave it. And then after that, when you're ready to compound your car, you spray the compound on, you know, like we've done onto your pad, and you work it on the car, and you leave it on the car as well. You don't buff the compound off, okay? I'm thinking, what? You don't buff the compound off? Why would you not do that? Well, then you go and do your polishing, and you spray your polish on the car, spray your polish on the pad. Sorry, my brain is starting to shut down. It's quite late here. It's dark outside. Forensic laboratories have closed down for the evening. I'm the only one left. You spray your polish onto the pad, and then you just go and work that. And then, is there more? Is there more synergy? I think at this point you have to wipe it off. But that's an example of an optimum synergy, and something like that would be really cool, because one of the things whenever you're compounding a car is the amount of buffing on the paintwork. You know, the buffing is you're buffing the car so much after each set. You know, it's a bit of a pain. So if you don't have to do that, and they've developed it not to have to do that, it's a really cool thing. And you don't, you know, with Optimum, you do not get into the habit of doubting any of the technical claims, okay? Because, you know, this isn't some, you know, New York, Paris, Peckham type detailing company. If you lined up, you know, if you could line people up in order of how much chemical expertise they've got when it comes to developing these types of products. You know, the guy that's developed this range is at the front of the queue. You know, and if he's not number one, he's second to God, you know, or it might be some other godlike characters out there that I don't know about, but he's up there at the front of the queue with all of them. So the technological side of it, when they say it works that way, it works that way, and you can trust it and you can do it, okay? So that's the first thing. I'm not an Optimum expert, by the way, so anyone watching this video, I'm learning this stuff as I go along, and I'm also kind of speaking to the Optimum guys and sort of saying what I'm doing and getting suggestions and learning loads of cool stuff. So I'm getting quite impressed and excited with the product range, because there's some unique things there, and they really are unique, and they will save you time, okay, but you'll still get good results. And if you look at the results that I got on that heavily damaged scrap panel, you know, with one set of compounding and just one little finishing bit to get, there was one deep mark I didn't get out of there, okay, but you know, I wasn't expecting it to, that's fine, that's the nature of the beast. And removing the sanding marks, and then going over it with the polish very quickly, I was able to create flawless paintwork, not 98% corrected paintwork with the micro scratches. I couldn't see anything in there. It was back to original. Interesting to see the difference between the area of the paintwork that's been wet sanded and the area that hasn't. The quality of the reflection is just so much better. So that's one question I'd like to put to the Dr. David Degussy, is can the industry solve the problem of orange peel on cars? Because it's one of the biggest problems out there, you know, and the manufacturers that are doing this and spraying this are putting it on there. They must know that the cars are covered with orange peel. They're not attempting to polish it down and wet sand it and compound it, because it's a minefield. So can technology solve that problem? If anybody knows, I'd be interested. Anyway, got to keep this video short and sweet. So that is the Optimum Hyper Polish Duo, a very impressive pair of products. Okay guys, so next up on the list is the Optimum Gloss coat. Now one thing I didn't mention earlier on is that there seems to be some different kind of sort of brand lines within Optimum. So you had the Optimum car care range, and then there seemed to be another branch of the company called Opti-Coat, which seems to be the professional coatings range, okay? The Optimum car care range has one ceramic type coating offering, and that's this product here called Optimum Gloss coat, okay? So this is the first time I've ever used a coating like this. So there's a fantastic podcast on, and I'll give you a link to it, talking about Optimum Gloss coat or the Optimum Opti-Coat range and why they're of interest, okay? And the main things to take away from that is that the Opti-Coat range use a different chemical technology to all other products out there, as far as I know. And they kind of said that tentatively, because you never know, there's so many brands, maybe someone's doing it. But their products are based on silicon carbide, okay? Whereas the rest of the coatings generally that are out there, again, I'm treading carefully here because you never know if there's an exception to the rule, so using words like generally and stuff, but generally the other coatings out there, the other ceramic or quartz coatings or silica coatings are made from silica dioxide or titanium dioxide, I think, okay? And there's a fantastic podcast on that where the doctor talks about the differences between the two and why they use this, and it was a really nice balanced podcast. It wasn't, you know, our particular pathway, if you like, our chemical choices are superior in every way to everyone else's. It was really balanced. It was talking about the advantages of using the silica dioxide based ones versus the ones they use and why they're using these. And some of those advantages, we're talking about kind of flexibility and durability and the way it kind of bonds and forms the bond to the paintwork. He was talking about the other products, saying they offer some advantages in gloss on application, so that immediate feedback of gloss. So go and listen to that, because there's no point in me trying to describe it. It will just go on for ages. But it's a really interesting podcast. So the thing I've always been worried about with these coatings are the fact that, unlike a wax or a sealant, they are harder, more durable, more resistant surfaces, okay, which give you, you know, lots of advantages to using them. A lot longer protection, a more scratch resistant type of protection. You know, a stronger coating, basically. Everything you'd expect from the term ceramic coating, even though that term, it probably isn't ideal. But with that, perhaps potentially comes some risks, you know, that makes a hobbyist detailer that hasn't used them less likely to be out there on a Sunday applying a ceramic coating to their car. Okay, so the first thing that I think is really important with when you're applying a ceramic coating, from what I've read, and we're going to be doing this the first time, is making sure you're applying it to a perfected panel. Because if you've got imperfections on that panel and you're putting the coating on top of it, you are then affecting your ability to then correct that damage. You've got to go through the coating back to the clear coat to then be able to correct that. So you want to get your panels as perfect as possible. So seems to be a sort of movement of people doing this with newer cars, that they get their car, nice high-end car, and they want to put a ceramic coating on it that's going to last a few years to provide protection. If you've got an older car that's got a lot more damage built into it, then it's going to require a lot more effort to get that clear coat back to a condition where you perhaps want to use a ceramic coating, okay? So I potentially wouldn't put this on my older M3 out there at the moment, because I know it's not perfect. So the better your paint, perhaps the more of an option this becomes. So the next thing I'm worried about is how we apply this, okay? And there's another video that Yvan did from Optimum Car Care with Levi from the rag company, where they just showed you how to use this and tried to keep it quite simple, but tell you the important things. So I had a watch of that. So the thing I think I took away from that is obviously the prep, which I mentioned, and then getting a consistent amount, you know, of product on there. You want to have it leveled. You don't want to have any kind of build-ups where you can see excess product. Those need to be flattened out. And the key thing that I took away as well from that video, that I'll link in the description, was putting the product down and then looking at it, eyeballing it, and watching, you get like an oily film that appears over it. Watch that film flash away till it's 80% gone, and then when you're at that stage, you level again if you need to with your applicator pad, or if you're happy that you've got a good consistent coverage, you wipe down with a very clean microfiber, and then you're done, you leave it, okay? Now, once you're done, you've applied it, I believe you have to leave the coating to fully cure. I'm not sure how long you have to leave it for. So, in other words, you don't apply it and then come back an hour later and wash your car, because you're gonna cause yourself problems. So you leave it to cure, and I would imagine that's at least 24 hours, but maybe longer, and I'll find out and flash that up on the screen. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead now and apply this coating. One other thing I forgot to mention, guys, is before you apply this product, you need to give it a wipe down of a cleaner product that's going to take any polishing oils or kind of grease off of this panel, so you have a completely clean surface. Optimum provide a product, but I've done an IPA wipe down at about 20 to 25%, just to make sure it's grease free, so this thing can bond properly, so we've got a clean surface for it to bond to. Okay guys, one other important thing. Optimum will supply you with an applicator with this product. Use the applicator that they supply, okay? The product comes with a locked in stopper in there that requires a little bit of force to get undone, so you might want to use some pliers. And then a specific nozzle for applying the product in small droplets, okay? So, in the Optimum video, they just applied it to 1/4. I'm doing a very small section of panel here, so I'm going to hardly use any droplets on this. I hope you can see this. So I'm just going to apply the droplets to a small section of the panel. Here it comes. So I've just used nine small drops, okay? Now I'm going to work that product onto the panel. Hopefully my head's not in the way. No. So it feels nice. It feels nice and loose. It's like applying an oil. So I'm just going to go in little circles to make sure I get it covered everywhere. And then I'll probably go in lines. Right, now I'm just going to do lines. And then the other way. And then lines once again. Right. Okay, I'm going to give it, I can still see a little bit of that kind of oily residue they were talking about. I can see it's starting to disappear. It looks like it's leveling out as well. So I'm just going to give it a little bit longer until virtually all of it's gone, and then I'm going to give it a buff. They say 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, so I'm probably getting close to that time now. I can still see some of that oily residue there, so I'm just waiting for that to kind of mostly disappear. Now I'm going to be using a pearl microfiber, okay? So this doesn't have, it's a nice soft absorbent 70/30 towel, but it doesn't have any strands of microfiber sticking up either in a strand or in a loop, so there's less chance of anything coming off of this microfiber. So I think this will be a good choice. Okay, that looks ready to buff now. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to buff this down. Okay guys, so the product's been applied. Kind of, as you can see, there's no sign of like any kind of little areas of product that haven't kind of blended into the panel. So I think I'm pretty much done. Okay guys, and the final thing, once you've finished applying this to all the surfaces on your car, which is only going to take a little bit of time, you put your applicator pad in a bucket of ONR, which I've got down here. And that just stops that product kind of curing on your applicator, so the applicator's good to go again later on. So the thing I want to get across from using this for the first time is that it's not too dissimilar from applying a sealant or a wax, okay? But obviously there are different chemical characteristics at play here. So there's two very important things, and they go back to what I said before. Your prep has to be good because of the nature of the coating, okay? If your prep's not good and you're putting that down, you're really kind of locking in any damage that you've left under there, and you're putting that product sitting on top of that damage. So your prep has to be good. The second thing is, do not use too much product. The product, when you put it on the applicator pad, it's like working an oil over the car. I mean, it might have some form of solvent, mineral oil in it, I don't know. But it's just like working a loose film of oil. So it's very easy to work. But at the time when it's easy to work, you need to get it right. Because when it starts kind of curing and going hard, if you haven't really leveled it properly, then by the time it goes hard, if you've still got, you know, if you haven't got a level surface of product, once that cures, you won't have a perfect finish. But it's not difficult to level that product. Just use less, I think. You know, I'm not an expert here. I'm just kind of going by what I see. You can really, you know, if you use a small amount of product, you can really keep working that product all over the panel like you would an oil, and then get your light on it and watch it. Wait for it to flash away, wait for that oily residue to kind of disappear, whatever it is, and just as it's kind of gone, after a couple of minutes it's virtually all gone, then you level with your microfiber. So yeah, very easy to apply really, and just from thinking it through in my mindset, just doing it on a small little section of panel where you've got your concentration, you're diligent, you're doing the leveling is fine. So when you're doing it on a whole car, just need to make sure your prep is good, make sure your pre-wipe down is good and you've got that clean surface. And then make sure, I think, that you take your time, don't use too much product on an area, make sure it's level. You know, you've got that opportunity where you're working with it with that first 1 to 2 minutes where you're watching it and it's flashing away and you're leveling it. That's the time you've got to be diligent, okay? Once you've leveled it and you've gone over it with your light to make sure you haven't got any excess product, as long as you've satisfied yourself there's no excess product, I think you're home and dry. And then it's a case of just letting the thing harden off. So at some stage, at the moment, I'm up to my eyeballs in testing wax. So I don't want to put another coating on and then put the wax on top because it will affect what I'm testing. At some point I'm going to probably make the jump and coat one of my cars in this completely to get a better view on kind of what it's like over a longer period of time. But certainly from an application point of view, I don't think there's anything you need to be too scared about, as long as you just follow those kind of basic rules that they've explained quite well in the Optimum tutorial that's on YouTube. So next up is Optimum Power Clean, which is a multi-surface cleaner that they suggest you can use on your wheels and tyres as well as interior surfaces, okay? Okay, here you can see the Power Clean product mixed down at 3:1 and sprayed on the alloy and the dirty tyre. A woolly brush was used to clear out the brake dust from inside the barrels. And at last the scrubbing brush was used to clean the tyre. Any excess fallout was agitated with a synthetic wash mitt, then a quick rinse and the tyre was wiped down with some cheap microfiber.
The tyre was then left to dry and sprayed with Opti-Bond Tyre Gel mixed 1:1 with water. The product was then spread over the tyre using a firm applicator sponge. And finally, any excess was just very gently wiped off with a clean microfiber cloth.
Okay guys, so just want to wrap up what I think about these two products. So first of all, the power clean, okay? This was the degreasing in this is strong, okay? The kind of the way that it melted the brake dust on the alloys reminded me of some kind of dedicated wheel cleaners that I've used. So I can see why they've put the word power in it. It's strong stuff, and I've got this 3:1 as well. I had heavy dirt and kind of brake dust on here from probably a fair few thousand miles, okay, and it just melts it off the car, which is good. So you haven't got to be kind of really going too mad with the old brushwork to get all those little bits of fallout on that can stick to the car. So it's effective, it's well formulated, it does the job, okay. It cleaned the wheels well. The Optimum Tyre Bond Gel, okay, what do I think of this? It's very easy to use. I mean, most tyre dressings are. The one thing I don't like with a tyre dressing is when because you're going to get some of it on your hands when you're working it with a sponge and you're working it around the tyre. I hate the ones that are all, you get them on your fingers and they're like an oil slick, okay? Some of the wet look ones, even though I really like a wet look tyre, don't get me wrong. You know, it's got a good bling factor. This isn't an ultra kind of heavy wet look dressing. If you put one coat down, you'll get a satin finish. They say if you want to get more gloss, you can keep layering it up, okay? So you've got a bit of flexibility there. It's not greasy. It's got a slight gel-like quality to it, but it's not a heavy gel, so it's quite easy to work around the tyre, okay? If you do get it on your fingers, it's not a problem, you know? There's a bit of greasiness to it, but nothing like as bad as the ones that are laced in kind of tons of silicone and kind of solvents keeping them all loose. So it's a nice product to work with, and it's going to give you a satin finish with one coating, and it's water-based, I believe. You can bulk it down with water, it must be. So it's not going to have that risk of kind of doing anything to the rubber on your tyres as well. The one other thing is how it darkens as well. It's consistent, so there's no patches of little bits that are kind of darker than the others, okay? That's nice. Yeah, the one thing I can't comment on is how long it's going to last, but I'll keep an eye over it over the next few weeks and see how it fares. I've got a test tyre outside as well that I test them on, so I'll stick it on half the test tyre and put it up against something that I know lasts a fair old amount of time and see how they fare next to each other in durability. So if it lasts well, this is a product you should have a look at, because like I say, it's safe, it's easy to use. Yeah, and it's good. It gives you a nice satin finish.
Next up is Opti-Seal. This is Optimum Car Care's multi-purpose polymer sealant. Opti-Seal can be used on paintwork, plastics, headlights, trim, glass, interior kind of vinyl and rubber. Most surfaces, most non-porous surfaces can be sealed with this product. Applying the product is extremely easy. Simply spray one squirt only, onto an applicator pad and then distribute it over the surface you're aiming to seal. The product will leave a thin residue haze, as you can see in the pictures. Now that haze will generally flash away on its own, but if you see any excess, you can buff away to reveal a kind of shiny finish underneath. The main things to understand about Opti-Seal as a product are: one, you do not need to use a lot of the product to get results. It is literally one spray and you can probably do your whole front bonnet with that. The second thing is the product is very easy to distribute over your panels and very easy to buff away. It's not a hard curing kind of product that's going to require a lot of force to get off your paintwork. The third thing is the versatility of the product. You can use this to seal virtually anything. The only things I wouldn't recommend using it on are things like exhausts or potentially alloy wheels, where you're going to have high temperatures involved. So it's a multi-surface sealant for paintworks, glass, vinyl, rubbers and all those sorts of things that's very easy to apply. One other really cool use of the product that I think is one of the best ways to use it is when you're doing a wash on your car. and in this example we're doing a wash with the ONR system, you can use the product as a drying aid. So you simply pump one spray of the product onto the panel, the wet panel after washing it, and then buff that back. And as well as kind of helping you kind of break off any water or residue from the ONR that's on the car, it will also top up the seal levels at the same time and help get that water off the car. So I think that's a really good use of the product, along with just using it as a kind of conventional sealant via the application method I showed before.
Okay guys, so next up is the Optimum Car Wax. Okay, so this is a spray wax similar to a detailing spray, and lots of detailing sprays out there contain carnauba wax, but this one is a mix of carnauba wax and our own polymer system as well. And the thing I want to talk about that's in here that's quite important is the UV protection system that's in here. Let's just talk about the basic thing. So you spray this on your car and you buff it off, okay, to give you gloss and protection. That's fine. They say 5 months protection out there. That's long for spraying products, although some of these spray products do contain the technology to give you that kind of protection and durability. So this is advertising itself as a car wax more than a detail spray with carnauba in it. Okay, so it's doing more than just a detail spray. So think of it as a form of applying shine and protection to your car quickly in a nice, easy format to use. Now, the UV system they've got in this, I think it was one of the first products they developed. It's got a patented UV system. And again, I point back to those podcasts. The doctor was talking about half-life of the UV protection in modern clear coats have a clear coat system on that provides UV filtering, okay? So the UV rays don't damage the paintwork. And again, that's my understanding. Could have some small technical details wrong there, but the UV protection in clear coat has a half-life of 5 years. So after 5 years, so if you get a car in 2011 now, after 5 years, that UV protection is now at 50%, okay? And in another 5 years, it's dropped down to 75% and so on. So after 5 years, the amount of protection that's built into the paint system of your car is lowering, okay? So if there's less protection, then the damage that UV rays can do to your paintwork is going to increase. The UV protection system in this product, when you spray it on your car, okay, it doesn't just sit within the product on top of your car providing UV protection. It migrates into the paintwork, which is really cool. I didn't even know that was possible, So it's actually migrating down to the paintwork and working with whatever protection you've got in your clear coat to block and reflect, and absorb, however the technology works, the harmful UV rays. So that's a really important thing. So if you've got a brand new car, you're kind of all right for the first 5 years, although there might be a lot more to it than that. But you know what I mean? So especially with older cars and cars where the paintwork will be more prone to fading, it's like a red car. We all know how red cars go in the sun. Whatever the pigment is in red paint seems to be really affected. So this product could be of interest, to you, that if UV protection is a big thing, you don't have a garage, you have a car that's perhaps older than 5 years and is getting hit by the sun a lot. The product is, in terms of application, there's nothing to say other than you spray it on and you buff it off, okay? Carnauba wax always gives you a little bit of a hazy thing that you need to buff out. That had that. So, their Opti-Seal product was almost like, it leaves a film, but it's kind of crystal clear, no haziness. There's a little bit of haziness with this that you buff back to get a sort of deeper shine. But it's so easy to apply. You're not going to have any problems using this product. You can use it as well, I believe, for vinyl surfaces and moulding, so it can protect those surfaces as well. So I'm thinking like your dashboard that gets hit hard from the sun. So again, it's got kind of multiple purposes, which seems to be a theme for the line. So yeah, I'm interested in this as well as because of the fact it's got carnauba in it, which is unique amongst their range, apart from the ONR with the wash and wax system. I'm interested in it because it can give you that kind of deeper gloss that I like getting when I'm detailing. There's a different type of gloss. So I think it's good for them to have a product containing natural waxes, because they're quite technology faced with all of their sealing system, with the ONR and the Optimum Seal and all their coating. They've got a whole sub range in the Optimum coats and all these ceramic coatings. Well, this is a bulk standard, friendly, easy to use product that, you know, anybody can use and nothing can really go wrong. So yeah, it's good to have it in the line. So that's the Optimum car wax. Like I say, key feature, UV filtering, patent. So yeah, I mean, Optimum Car Care have got these sophisticated ceramic coatings. They've got this sealant, kind of polymer sealant coating that we'll talk about a bit later on. It's nice that they've got a very simple carnauba wax spray with their other polymer technology in there that anyone can use. You know, it's a real user-friendly thing. But the key thing that caught my eye about the product that I wanted to get across is that patented UV protection. Next up is the Optimum No Rinse and the Optimum No Rinse Wash and Wax. So I don't want to waste too much time talking about Optimum No Rinse because I've done a whole other video where I used it again for the first time and kind of used it on a really heavily soiled car, you know, with a little bit of, I've never used it before, so I was using it with a little bit of kind of, what's the word, caution, because it goes against the grain using this product. It's, you know, people say about it, they're scared to use it the first time, and then the more you use it, the more confident you get with it. So this time I used it again to clean the Golf, which was pretty dirty. And the unique thing this time as well is I used it with the big red sponge, okay? Now I remember I remember probably about 15 years ago, the sponge suddenly, you know, suddenly shot from superstardom to being the villain in all B movies. And sponge was a big faux pas word, and it still is a faux pas word. You know, if you see someone, people take pictures of people, if they ever spot them, and I detail a spot someone cleaning the car with a sponge, it'll be on Facebook, you know, saying, look, someone's cleaning their car with a sponge. They got that bad a reputation. However, it's less about the sponge with ONR, and it's about the technology that they're using here to kind of encapsulate the dirt that makes the sponge probably a really good method of doing it. And when I did my video first, I used the microfiber sort of method where you're dunking your microfiber in there, using a clean one, wiping away, and then using another one to buff. You get through a hell of a lot of microfiber doing that, okay? It's got advantages and disadvantages. So I found just using the sponge quicker and easier than really going through all that microfiber, and there's going to be less washing at the end of it. The only thing they said about this is make sure you soak it in the Optimum No Rinse bucket, you know, a bucket full of your water and ONR mix at 256:1, which is the sort of the ratio it should be using it at. Just 24 hours, just let it completely soak into the sponge. So I did that. What's it like? What's it like using? It feels like you're doing something naughty when you're cleaning your car. It felt like to me I was doing something naughty. But I know this product does what it says on the label, okay? Again, they were talking about it on the podcast and the technology behind it, which I still don't understand. I still don't know what chemical exactly they're using. And I'm just kind of interested in that from a sort of, you know, dorky perspective. What the hell is doing this cushioning? But they mention a term called Switter ionic. So the substance in there is Switter ionic. So it repels in the dirt the negative and the positive charged particle. I don't know if that's the electron or whatever. I haven't got a clue, it's way over my head. But it repels them both, which creates some sort of chemical cushioning when you've got the solution and the dirt there. So you're not kind of working the dirt against your clear coat like you would be if you were just using something like water. And the other advantages are that you keep the system, the ONR product, on that paintwork. You know, so you work the sponge over the panels and get them clean with the sponge and the ONR, and then the product is still on the panel when you come back to buff off that kind of runny residue, whatever it is. You know, you buff that back off. So the lubrication it's providing, that chemical cushioning, is there throughout that kind of drying process as well. So when you're cleaning the car normally,
you're doing a lot of that, you know, pre-rinses, snow foams, then you're shampooing and working the suds, and while you've got those suds loose and soapy, you're getting your lubrication there. But then you've got to get your water off the car, and then you dry your car with a towel, typically, you know, and water, and you can use detail sprays as well, but you're getting the benefits of the chemical cushioning or technology, the Switter ionic stuff. And you're taking a leap of faith here. You've got to take a leap of faith with this product the first time you use it, you know, and you'll see the more you use it, the less it is to scratch. Now, I have not switched over to using ONR as my wash method, okay, and that doesn't mean it's because I don't like the product. What I do with it is I hedge my bets. I still find free-flowing water, and Optimum, you know, they don't deny that free-flowing water when you're cleaning the car is a handy thing to have, or pressurized water, okay, it's a handy thing, you know. This is great for cleaning the scuttles, you know, and it's safe on dirt and getting those panels clean, so it's safe. But free-flowing water is great for kind of rinsing away that dirt and rinsing away in all those grills and areas. So free-flowing water is always going to be used for cleaning cars as well. So this is something that you have there as an option, and some people choose to use it over free-flowing water because they trust it so much. What I do with it is I hedge my bets, and I put it into my wash bucket, which, as they say you can do, so that chemical cushioning I'm getting, but I'm also able to stick with a traditional wash method, because that's how I do it when I've got my setup here. I've got my pressure washer and everything, and I've got all my products that I've already used, you know, I've got all these wash mitts and stuff, so it's just ingrained in me to wash my car that way, typically. Okay guys, so I want to wrap this video up and now talk about my conclusions of using this kind of Optimum range for the first time over the last couple of days. Okay, first up, the range is quite condensed, it's quite small. There's more offerings than I've got here. There's about sort of 25-30 products, and they offer microfiber, pads, clay. It's all on the Optimum Car Care website. The distributors for the UK and Europe and America, I'll put links in there so you can go and find it and browse the other products as well. But the range is quite condensed. The reason I think it's condensed is a lot of the products are kind of multifunctional, so they don't just do one thing, they do lots of things like we've talked about throughout the video. So that's kind of an advantage more than a disadvantage. I personally like a smaller range that does everything I need than a larger range where I've got to go and buy more products and shelve more products. So I thought that was good. The second thing, probably the most important thing to take away from this video, is the technological approach that this company take. It's almost like they could just follow the market. They're clever enough, you know, the Dr. David Degucci is clever enough to watch what other companies are doing and offer that, you know, do that. But I think that they're kind of they're clever enough to lead the way and actually create some of these products that are chemically different and kind of, you know, perhaps even, you know, ONR as an example, it's a little bit kind of different, it's a little bit groundbreaking chemically to anything I've heard of before. Even there's loads of people doing waterless washes now. I'm not sure if they're using the same technology, they've been able to figure out and copy it, but you know, they've made a name for themselves because they created it, if you like, which I always, you know, you've got to give credit for that. Same with their Opti-Coat system, you know, being US made, you know, being silicon carbide based rather than, so it's a little bit different to all the rest. They're doing it their way for a reason, and they've got heavy chemical expertise to take them that way. So that gives you confidence, doesn't it? I like those Optimum synergies that allow you to use different methods of working to save time. They're clever. I think they could push those synergies a little bit more, because I couldn't, you know, Yvan told me about them, but I couldn't really get any more information if I wanted to go trawling without asking people. So maybe a cheat sheet somewhere on a website showing these flows that you can use for different products to link them together and save time. So that's another cool thing. Why should you use this range? I think the standout products for me are quite clear to, they come to my mind without me having to turn around and look at them. The Opti-Coat here, Gloss Coat, which is the only ceramic offering from their, you know, they offer. They've got the whole
Opti-Coat range, which gives you tons, but in the Optimum Car Care range, this is the one, you know, the non-professional range, if you like. You know, I talked about it. It's just so easy to use, and I don't know why I was so reluctant to go into that world of ceramic coatings. It's made me want to kind of explore it more and compare it to some of those other formats and different options. But it's so easy to use. As long as you're reasonably careful, you're going to get what you want, which is a more durable kind of coating on your car that's going to last longer. Okay. This is all the technology stuff. So the Opti-Coat. The Optimum No Rinse product, again, go and watch the other video I did on it. I like it. It's a good concept. It's different and it's safe. Okay, and the Hyper Polish range. Okay, the biggest advantage for me is that I had no problems using it, getting those products to deliver to me on really damaged, nasty, guffed up clear coat that I damaged with my hand. I was able to just first time using the products, get the results I wanted. But not just the results, it's the speed that you can get them at and the amount of product you use that kind of caught my eye a little bit. The last thing is the UV protection that is built within the patented UV protection that's built within some of their products. That's important because it's going to help keep your car protected, especially if you've got a car that's aging a little bit more and the inbuilt protection in the UV is kind of, in the clear coat, is fading away. Okay guys, so finally a big thank you to Patrick, Edwin and Yvan from Optimum Car Care for helping to get this review off the ground. They were, you know, great guys to deal with. I just told them what I wanted to do and there was no kind of direction other than, yeah, here you go. And the products come through. I find myself out here using them and free to say what I like about them. Okay guys, as always, thank you very much for tuning into the Forensics Detailing channel. Any comments, because I'm well aware that a lot of people use the Optimum range and have got a lot more knowledge. So any synergies that you know of, I want to hear of. That's really important. We'll list them in the channel if we can to, you know, try and spread the word on those. Any other uses for any of these particular products that I haven't thought of? With ONR, I know you can use it for loads more things, so I'd like to know about that. There's going to be some more brand reviews coming up hopefully, and as always, loads more videos and best of videos. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so, and I will see you again shortly. Thanks very much for watching.
Lil guns down, Lil guns down, Lil guns down in the ground.